Hello friends, comrades, fellow creatures of life. This video is going to be a reading series of world history. So it's going to be reading world history, and they're going to be on select topics in the history of human civilizations. I have several books on world history that are very scholarly, very in-depth, including books on archaeology and paleoarchaeology, anthropology and paleoanthropology. However, those books are very lengthy, very well detailed, and they're very lengthy treatises on those particular subjects. This book, however, I highly recommend. This is a 2014 publication. It's by National Geographic, called Almanac of World History. It's the 3rd edition, and it's by Patricia Daniels and Stephen Hyslop. And these sections are very concise, and it will offer that way I'll be able to do very short readings from this book, and I hope it will be informative, as I've gone through this book as many as other world history books as well. I hope this book will help us learn a little bit more about history. So, with that being said, I'm going to skip the forward, and we will start with the rise of agriculture and complex societies. Then we'll go over the evolution of writing, and then the classical tradition. So these videos are going to be extremely short, and I'm only going to do about one video a day of history. So this is going to be about agriculture and the evolution of writing. The transition from hunting and gathering to farming, which may have begun around 10,000 BC or even 12,000 BCE, was a great step forward for the human race. Ultimately, it allowed the emergence of civilization. Like all profound changes, however, adapting to farming was difficult for those used to a different way of life. Farming was harder than hunting and gathering, particularly when people first began to work the soil and lacked metal tools or draft animals to ease their labors. Working the land was so taxing, some regarded it as a curse on humanity, as expressed in many ancient Middle Eastern stories that you might have heard of. Cast out of, I'm going to not talk about that. Anyways, the rivalry between Cain and Abel reflects a human drama played out over thousands of years in the region that gave birth to many religious texts. The ancients many of which lived in the Fertile Crescent, an arc extending from Egypt's Nile Valley to Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in modern-day Iraq. This region was not as dry in ancient times as it is today, and land unsuitable for farming could be used for grazing. Domestication of cattle, along with sheep and goats, has been documented as taking place 8,000 years ago. Humans had domesticated dogs, but the herding of sheep and goats was of greater consequence because, as plentiful sources of wool, milk, and meat, they provided much of what people needed for food and clothing. Over time, nomadic flock herders encountered people who had settled down a sedentary life as farmers. Ancient conflicts echoed in the feud between many of these cultures. And indeed, we're still having many conflicts in the Middle East. So once communities in the Middle East practiced both skills, combining cultivation with the raising of animals, it marked the birth of agriculture. Domesticated animals like sheep and cattle eased work and provided food. Now people had to produce grain to support themselves and their livestock in times of scarcity. They lived in one place all year round. Wild grains were domesticated according to each region's soil and climate. By 8,000 BCE, strains of wheat and barley were being grown in the Middle East, rice and millet in China and Southeast Asia. Einkorn, a primitive form of wheat, was being grown in the Indus Valley of today's Pakistan. Maize or corn was domesticated in the Americas around 3000 BCE, and by that time people elsewhere were raising various crops and tending cattle, sheep, pigs, horses, and other livestock. Agriculture spurred crafts. Farmers needed receptacles to store grain. the potter's wheel was invented, which led to wheeled vehicles. The first plows, made of wood and drawn by hand, barely scratched the soil, but by 3000 BCE, Mesopotamian farmers used cattle to pull plows whose bronze-tipped blades dug deeply, greatly increasing harvest productivity. The Sumerians herded goats, sheep, and cattle in Ur, one of the first cities of Mesopotamia. Agriculture, again, laid the foundations of Mesopotamian civilization. Agriculture transformed human existence. Farmers produced more food than their families and livestock required. Potters, weavers, bakers, brewers, priests, and officials were able to pursue specialized work without starving. Specialization was crucial to the rise of cities and civilization, a term derived from the Latin word for city. People put down roots, acquired possessions, had time and energy for activities other than mere subsistence. They built prestigious monuments, like Stonehenge in Britain, dating from about 2000 BC. Even more impressive structures arose. In Egypt, rulers with vast reserves of grain and manpower built pyramids. Most early civilizations arose near rivers: the Nile, the Tigris and Euphrates, the Indus River Valley, and the Yellow River in China. Those rivers flooded regularly, depositing silt that enriched the soil and raised crop yields. Irrigation systems further increased production. It took strong leadership to manage irrigation projects and distribute surplus grain. Powerful rulers arose, first presiding over city-states and ultimately over kingdoms and empires. Kings and emperors reaped the fruits of civilization, but it was humble tillers of the soil, like those of the humble man who planted the seeds. In the next video that we're going to do tomorrow, I'm going to talk about the development and evolution of writing. Thank you.